Bienvenidos, Damas y Caballeros, vuestros mercedes, soldados. Today we will be discussing the 400th anniversary of the quote, Annus Mirabilis, end quote, which is succinctly translated as the Year of Wonders, or the Year of Miracles. The year 1625 was a very special year for the Hispanic Monarchy, as 5 major events took place that reaffirmed the might of the Spanish Empire. This was the year in which Gaspar de Guzman, Conduque de Olivares, valido del Rey Felipe IV, proclaimed, quote, Dios es español y está de parte de la nación estos días, end quote, or God is Spanish and is part of the nation these days. This video is meant to just give a quick overview of the victories that all of us in the Hispanic community should take pride and celebrate this year. That being said, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. The first event to take place was the relief of Genoa. From about March 28th to April 24th, 1625, the French and Piedmontese invaded the areas leading up to Genoa. They were able to besiege the city with a large military force. There were other forces supposed to join the French assault, but they didn't materialize. The Spanish sent troops to relieve Genoa. The Duke of Feria came by land to Genoa's aid. The Marquis de Santa Cruz, Alvaro de Bazan, came by sea, and soon the siege was lifted. The Spanish and Genoese forces counterattacked and were successful. By the year's end, Genoa recuperated all she lost, and soon Spain and France made peace. A complete victory for España. The second event to take place was the recapture of Bahia. During this time, the Kingdom of the Spains and the Kingdom of Portugal were in a personal union, and so Portuguese overseas possessions were a part of the Spanish Empire. The Dutch sent a fleet and were able to capture Bahia, Salvador in Brazil, in 1624. The Spanish coordinated with the Portuguese and sent a fleet to recapture Bahia. In 1625, the Spanish forces blockaded the bay and landed troops. A siege was laid, and soon the defenders were helplessly alone. And after multiple failed attacks, the defenders capitulated, and the town was recaptured. A second Dutch fleet was sent, and that too had failed. Another glorious victory for the Spanish, although not completely flawless, as several ships and men were lost to the elements. The third event to take place was the surrender of Breda. The city of Breda was a well-fortified city in the Low Countries, near the Spanish de facto controlled areas of Brabant. The Dutch sieged it a couple years earlier and heavily fortified its defenses to counter a Spanish attack. The Spanish court did not consider besieging the town, but the commander, Ambrosio Spinola, defied orders and besieged the city in 1624. Surrounding the city with a large force and securing the paths for convoys to travel. Heavy siege works and defeating the Dutch relief army finally pushed the city to capitulate in 1625. This siege is immortalized by the Diego Velázquez painting La Rendición de Breda, 1635, and sent a message across Europe that the Spaniards were far from weak and defeated. The fourth event to take place was the Battle of San Juan. The Dutch sent a fleet to capture Spanish settlements in the New World, and soon set their sights on San Juan. They demanded the city from the new governor, but he rejects and prepares for a siege. The Dutch brute force their way into the bay, but couldn't disembark. This allowed the Spaniards to evacuate women and children, and the men holed up in the local fort. The Dutch finally disembarked and captured the town, laying siege to the fort. After multiple failed attempts, the Dutch then burned down the town and got on their ships and retreated back to Holland. This display of Spanish resistance is a notable trait inherited in all Hispanic peoples and was on display here as well. Another Spanish victory that was relatively complete, although San Juan had to be rebuilt. The fifth and final event to take place was the defense of Cadiz. The English king, Charles I, was caught in a scandal in the previous years leading up to the expedition, known today as the Spanish Match. Future video on that subject. To regain his public image, he petitioned for a war with Spain and sent a large fleet to attack Spain. The commander, Edward Cecil, wanted to 1. Attack and pirate the treasure fleet, and 2. Attack Spanish settlements to weaken the economy. The expedition faced problems from the beginning. The weather was unfavorable and delayed the expedition, in addition to dealing damage. The English-Dutch fleet, it was a few Dutch ships and men, then came into the Bay of Cadiz and were able to land troops. After taking a fort, they had the task of capturing the city, but fierce resistance and tactical debacles led the expedition to retreat, and costing many ships and men. The Spanish had won another absolute victory, and the expedition failed to capture anything. These 5 events were impressive on their own, but coupled with what the Spaniards were dealing with at the time, it was more seen as an affirmation that God was on their side. Mind you, that the 30 Years' War was happening alongside the civilization of the New World and the Protestant revolt and its effects. Just from this brief overview of these 5 events, should we as Hispanics, as Hispanos, celebrate our ancestors' achievements? I'll leave a link or links to videos that do more justice than my brief overview. This video is just to call attention to these events and something to post since my last video. As always, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. I have been your host, Spanish Galleon, and I will see you guys next time. Viva Cristo Rey! Arriba Hispanidad! Adelante Hispanos!